We're going to be talking about the future of Xbox because a lot of things have happened, but I think there's one quote that just hangs above everything else, and it's this. It comes from Asha Sharma.
My mandate is not 30% accountability margin. It's not enterprise software margins. It's to be the #1 gaming and entertainment company, and that's what we're going to go do.
It suggests that Xbox has changed in more ways than just capitalizing on their brand name, making it all caps, and making the logo a bit more cool. It's now been over 100 days since the new leadership took over. They're boasting about shipping features, being closer to fans, and, as of last weekend, bringing back exclusives. But as Sharma now promises that, quote,
I think the next 100 days, we have to reset the business.
It very much remains to be seen how much Xbox will have really changed, and today, we're going to interrogate that and work out what's going on. We want people to choose Xbox because of great games and experiences. That also means giving you something that was made for Xbox. So according to Sharma, that's why Gears of War E-Day and Clockwork Revolution will be Xbox exclusives. Permanently so, never ever coming to PlayStation. And seemingly, this was a recent decision. Journalist Jeff Grubb reported as much. That was a decision that just got made. Interesting because, well, it happened post ESRB rating, meaning that there is a version of it somewhere on a drive that will run in PlayStation. Now, according to people at the physical showcases in LA, even Xbox staff didn't know what was going on. Some of this exclusivity news was quite literally news to them. Basically, executives decided this at least a month beforehand, but it did not filter down the chain. And that's led to weird things like, after the reveal, an E-Day deep dive video had to be pulled down because it still listed PS5 as a platform. So why the scramble with all this? Well, it's because Xbox believes that they need to now start playing the long game, and that means taking strategic short-term hits. It was also, of course, Xbox responding to their most die-hard fans and what those people want. Exclusives were the #1 change asked for through Xbox's new player feedback system. There you go. Proof Xbox are listening. At least in part. Xbox CCO Matt Booty explained that live service games and big multiplayer games are still going to be multi-platform. And there's good reason why. An estimated 5.8 million copies of Forza Horizon 5 were sold last year. That just does make a lot of sense. That's a lot of copies to turn down. Then there's games already promised for PlayStation like Halo Campaign Evolved. Of course, the funny thing there is the Halo Campaign Evolved trailer that really impressed people opened with recorded on PS5 Pro. And because Microsoft don't actually have a console that's anywhere near the power of PS5 Pro, the best place to play that game on console it'll be a PS5 Pro. They say that then, on a case-by-case basis, they'll review each game and basically tell players whether it'll be on other platforms at the point that they announce release dates for games. And that's why the newly announced Senua game will be on PS5. Same goes for, say, State of Decay 3. Essentially, the portfolio of games that Spencer and Bond built over the last 4 years is now finally coming due. And the funny thing is that in reality, there's not really been that much changed from a year ago. Because the new policy is that any game can be multi-platform and that any game can be exclusive. But what has changed is Xbox's marketing and PR push, because it is all about how things are totally different, and that started even before the showcase. Last week, before all the showcases went down, Sharma gave a rare interview to Bloomberg Live's afternoon streams. They basically, on that show, bring on tech executives and give them softball interviews in a decently PR-friendly environment. You can probably tell because the interviewer ends up talking a lot about the things that Sharma wants to suggest she's taking action on, like exclusive games.
It's a tough topic. Look, we're the #2 publisher in the world, and in order to be a great publisher, you must have your games reach large audiences to play. At the same time, we're increasingly becoming a platform. In order to be a platform, you must have exclusive content and services, and so we have to be very thoughtful about each title.
Do you know what? Of all the CEO words, I think thoughtful is one of the best, because man, you can just map onto that word whatever the hell you want. Now, the framing of becoming a platform is a bit weird. It'll be news to anyone who has worked on Xbox over the last 25 years, because it kind of has been a platform for all that time. But this was mostly them priming the press for the showcase reveals. Because in this type of event, they set up the framing for the press, then they do their big showcase, and how their showcase is covered will depend, of course, on the framing that they just set up. One thing I can say for sure, Sharma and her PR team are absolute mercs, and goddamn, they're pretty damn good at what they do. So the upshot of this is that Xbox are not opposed to exclusives, it's just that their position is not entirely different to where we were 12 months ago under the old leadership. But there are parts of the interview that do suggest Sharma is being given quite a bit of grace to act in a way that her predecessors may not have been able to act. One example is the removal of Copilot from Xbox's development. Asked about the contradiction between Satya Nadella's stance and hers, Sharma gave, I'd say, a fairly interesting and well-calibrated answer. She said the broader trends at Microsoft supported the decision, where they've been removing the branding from the likes of Notepad. But Sharma frames Xbox's decision as actually being hers, not an org-wide let's de-slopify. You know, the way they're trying to de-slopify Windows 11.
It was an Xbox decision. He's given me latitude to make the best decisions for our players.
You know, there's this idea that Microsoft wants to sort of extract software kind of revenues out of a gaming business, which may not be possible. Do you have more breathing room when it comes to the financials?
Yeah, so my mandate is not 30% accountability margin. It's not enterprise software margins. It's to be the #1 gaming and entertainment company, and that's what we're going to go do.
Now, that's a quiet nod to the alleged 30% accountability margin that Microsoft CFO Amy Hood supposedly imposed on Xbox under Phil Spencer. That old 30% margin demand was supposedly the thing that drove so much of Xbox's shifting strategy and their layoffs over the last few years, because the need for annualized profit pretty much overrode long-term thinking. Sharma at least appears to be in a very different position, at least anyway, in terms of how she's framing things to the public. As much as this stuff may sound good, and honestly it does sound really good, don't hold your breath, because at the end of the day, Satya, Amy, and the real higher-ups at Microsoft, they could change the rules of the game if they think other things are going to be way more important than what's going on with Xbox. So previously we heard the new success metric for Xbox staff was active users, and all this stuff would actually seem to support that. Their public-facing message is that success comes from being the biggest and most played publisher, but that doesn't necessarily translate to money.
We've got work to do. You shared the numbers. We're not in a healthy spot, and so next 100 days is going to be about resetting the business.
How do we square all of this? How is Asha feeling? Big balls enough to sit down and say, listen, based on our last quarterly earnings, we're in a bit of a bad place. Because you don't usually hear CEOs speak like that, do you? After all the research we've done here, here's how we think this stuff can be squared. Xbox are not profitable in the right way currently, yet they're not going to be pushed to hit unreasonable margin demands anymore. And something Sharma said about her tenure so far gave us a bit of an idea with this. There are things Sharma thinks they are succeeding with, and then there's the ways that she thinks Xbox needs to change.
I think the first 100 days are going to be hard to beat in terms of the excitement, but the next 100 days is, look, we've done so much to start to revive Xbox. We've shipped more in the last 100 days than we have in the last year. We've been able to reset Game Pass after an 8-month decline. It's now returned to growth and expanding retention, and most importantly, we're starting to get back to being closer to our players and our community. I think the next 100 days, we have to reset the business. We need to look at how we're investing, how we're prioritizing, change how we operate in order to return to growth, in order to be where the world plays. 2
admissions are buried within that. By her own timeline, October's Game Pass price hike directly contributed to declines until it was reversed. And then, quote, where the world plays obviously includes your phone, so mobile ambitions are not going to be going anywhere. But resetting the business is a quote that appeared twice in this interview. If it's making you feel a bit uncomfortable, and it's maybe making you think, what could be lost in that reset? Good, because that concern is almost certainly warranted. Okay, let me explain how we look at this going forward. So far, Asha's tenure has almost entirely been about marketing. Things like, say, the logo redesign, or capitalizing Xbox's name. No, I'm not going to read it overtly and just shout Xbox every time it comes up. Then there's reversing decisions made under the 30% profitability margin target, or sending teams out to solve edge cases. She's also fleshed out her leadership team with her retinue of trusted advisors from her previous role, and also, well, industry favorite analysts. So she's got quite a lot of people around her now. And of course, a whole lot of posts on X, which is where all the Xbox influencers are. And hey, I guess X makes a lot of sense for Xbox. Anyhow, the plan then is to make Xbox seem like a revitalized new business, free of hang-up, free of controversy, free of the boycotts of the past. And I have to say, from a PR perspective, I think it's worked. Aaron Greenberg, who's VP of Games Marketing, shared this graph. It's basically from the polling firm YouGov. They track US sentiment around the Xbox brand, and since Sharma started, people seem to have heard twice as much positive news about it compared to previous. Now, admittedly, 6 points of that are because of the price reduction in Game Pass, but it's one of those things where even though it's just Xbox cleaning up essentially Microsoft-inflicted wounds on their own brand, it still does count as improvement. Granted, the rebrand from Xbox to Xbox seems to have dropped it by 2 points, but it all does reflect the priorities of leadership right now. Selling the idea that Xbox is better and that you are being listened to. That things are well and truly back to how they used to be, and even with hardware themed up to look like it did 25 years ago. But the free wins can't last forever. At some point, we've got to expect Sharma to start making structural changes for the company. That's going to need to happen if they're going to compete from this position of weakness they find themselves in. That requires investment, it requires time, and it appears she's laying the groundwork now. Let's bring it all together because this story is, believe me, about to kick into high gear. We know Sharma's been given unprecedented control over how Xbox operate, and so far, she's been the face of every decision in social media. She says she intends to make Xbox the #1 gaming and entertainment company. How will they do that? We've just learned. It's not going to be just reinvestment. Oh no, it's looking at an Xbox that's not in a healthy spot and then cutting away everything that isn't profitable. But the difference between the last 4 years and now is that there's no one to take responsibility but Asha Sharma, because she is now the face of Xbox. And in the next video, we're going to go through exactly what that looks like.